All right. I think everything is in order. And this is Success Talk.
Yes.
Want to welcome our friends. This is Success Talk, and our topics are conversations with people who've been, as you say, in the marketplace, on the battlefield, people who have challenged life, people who have faced obstacles, and people who have had a breakthrough and overcome those obstacles. So tonight we have one of my good friends, Gary Jones. He's a radio and television host doing some incredible things on radio and on television. And so, Gary, welcome to Success Talk.
It is my pleasure, Dr. Herbert Harris. It is a pleasure to be with you, my good friend. Thank you so much for inviting me to your network. Thank you so much. It is with pleasure.
Well, Gary, I've always been impressed, because you've been doing radio and just great interviews for so many years. And now I saw the new television stuff you're doing. But give us a little about your background. Where did you come from and how did you get where you are now, man? That must be an interesting story.
Yes, it probably takes the whole time of your show to tell you my complete background. But I'm actually from North Carolina, here in North Carolina, down east. And I moved here when I was a teenager, moved to Raleigh, proud Shaw University graduate of Shaw University. And my life, I started out at Shaw University as a theater arts major. At first, Dr. Harris, believe me, I wanted to be a doctor in the beginning. I wanted to
Mm,
be a pre-med doctor. I wanted to go into that field. But I had talent as a musician, so I joined the band.
mm,
And I played in the band and theater. I was a theater arts major. But that some kind of way didn't work out too well for me. I performed a lot of plays, been on stages. But then I kind of linked over into radio as a DJ.
mhm.
Some people in the Raleigh, North Carolina area may know me as a DJ. My DJ name, which is on my website, they call me a legendary DJ Special G. So that was my DJ name years ago. I worked in a variety of clubs as a DJ. Now back then, Dr. Harris, I have my hair is still here, but I had a box haircut back then, with the earrings and all those wonderful things. Yeah, and so as time went on, my mother, moved to Raleigh, and the rest kind of just trickulated. Sometimes in life, Dr. Harris, you don't know where you're going. Only God knows where we're going. And then I had a chance to work in some publications out of the Durham area, and did some magazine stuff there, did some radio stuff there, but kind of blended on to my own radio show, and that
Mhm.
has been successful for me. And
Mm.
matter of fact, I've had you on there a couple of times.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yes.
I tell you, I have found, that your show's on many stations. And one of the interesting things, I've gotten more calls, people who listen to your program, you give your website and your phone number out, but very rarely do you get calls. And I've probably got more calls from shows that I've done with you than with almost any other show. Amazing. And I mean, people call you like 2 weeks later. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Wonderful, wonderful.
well, Gary, we are working on this topic of overcoming obstacles. And I know one of the challenges in life is when you make those career changes, when you start out to become one thing. I started out as a physicist and then and ended up a musician and then a lawyer. So,
Wow, wow.
yeah. So those kind of changes are the ones that, like I almost call them high impact changes, that something happens that makes you make that change and head in a different direction. Was there any, one thing that sort of took you from the theater into the broadcast piece?
Yes, sure. I can remember when I was in college. I was working at a shoe store in the mall, and I remember that a gentleman came by there that was a manager there, and I always liked to work, so he asked me, did I want a part-time job, and I said sure, and so I took the job, and I was a bartender. So I was learning how to bartend, learning how to be, you know, a person in that type of business, because the nightclub business and the bars and things like that is a whole total different business.
Mm,
It's a really tough business, and it's a really cutthroat business. So,
mm,
um, but from there, I started DJing. That's when the DJing thing came in, and I never forget. I had a chance to do a mix show in New Bern, North Carolina. The program director at that time, I remember, was a guy named Caesar Gooding. He was the program director there, and he took one of my little cassettes and put it on the radio. So when I heard my mixes and stuff on the radio, I said, wow, that sounds good on radio. I
mm-hmm,
was amazing that people could be in their cars all over the place and hear me.
mm,
So, and then another gentleman in the Raleigh area, at that time, it was Clear Channel, it was 97.5, and Foxy, I think it was Foxy at the time. But the gentleman name was Chris Connors. Chris Connors was the program director. He says, hey Gary, make us a mixtape. And honestly, Dr. Harris, I was afraid. He said, just do it. He says, you know, he didn't hesitate about my skills, because obviously he thought I was really good. So I did a mixtape for the radio. And then again, I heard myself on the radio.
mm,
So I hadn't really targeted in on what radio really meant at the time until I went to the station. And because all those mix shows are pre-recorded. But when I had a chance to go to the station and see the board and see how everybody was working, I got behind the microphone, and we all had fun in the station. Then I began to say, I want to try be an announcer on the radio station, because people can hear you, can send shouts out. And so I decided to try radio. And my first radio show with this particular show here, I've done other shows, but this particular show that you were on, I started out at the WAUG in Raleigh, North Carolina, and also in Warrenton, the station I was there, WARR. They gave me a chance to be on the air live to do my talk show. So it's a lot of variables and things inside, struggles that has happened from one level to the next. But it has been an interesting ride. Now I cannot forget about some other people that I had a chance to work with. I have to mention Lewis Cade was a really good friend of mine, who was also an entrepreneur in the area here in the entertainment business, who also taught me a lot about the business of entertainment. So that's been in my blood for a long time. So it's just been uphill from there. Yes.
Well, you know, Gary, that's a blessing, because a lot of people never figure out what they love to do. Or, yeah, they never figure out what they love to do. Many people get so involved with surviving that they never get a chance to thrive. And that idea of, can you imagine if you had not taken the time and put your mixtapes together? You know,
Yes.
someone once said that opportunity comes about when preparation. It's a victory. A blessing comes about when preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
And so the fact that you had those mixtapes, there must have been something in your mind when you were creating them that I guess you like doing it yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was a pleasure. I've won plaques. I mean, I have plaques, so you can see them on the back of my wall. I've had plaques and DJing competitions. A lot of people remember me from back then, but it was a passion. It was a passion that I had. And believe it or not, I knew when the passion was leaving. As I got older, I began to know that it was a major experience in my life, but I knew it was time to transition into something else, into talk radio. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Now that's a good point, because number one, a lot of people never determine what their passion is.
Right.
And then number two, many people don't have that courage to follow their passion.
That's true.
Yeah. Because when you did those mixtapes, you did it because you enjoyed doing it. And evidently you did it at a high level of professionalism.
Absolutely.
Yes. Because if it wasn't on a certain level, nobody was going to play it on the air.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And it
And
was, those times were very interesting because, when you're in that arena and you embark onto media platforms where the world sees you and you begin to draw attention to yourself, it comes along with a lot of attention. So I
mhm,
had to be ready for that too, because when you become popular in any field, you have to understand that you have to make sure you understand how you talk and how you handle people and your personality. So
yes,
it came with a lot of other things. So I've learned the key to recognize it. And again, as you mentioned, know where your passions are and recognize success.
yeah.
Yes.
Now, did there ever come a time when you wanted to throw in the towel? You know that I call it the go back and get a job moment when you're like, man, this isn't working. I could get a job. And then you look at your buddy who's been working at the same job for 30 years or 25 years, and he seems like he's doing okay. You ever come to one of those times where you're like, I'm ready to throw the towel in? And if so, how did you deal with it?
All the time. That happens every day. How I deal with it, how I keep going, Dr. Harris, I'm going to be honest. I really don't know what pushes me except a higher power. I'm gonna be
Mm,
honest because it is a motivation that it's like I can't stop now. It's hard to stop it. I would say to anybody, once you start a venture or something or an idea that you like to do, if it's meant for you and if it's a passion for you, it would take legs on its own. Because there's
mm,
been many times, like you say, I get sometimes I be tired. I'm honest, I get tired sometimes, and I'll say, I'm tired of doing this. I just can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. But then once you get into radio and get on networks, they expect your work weekly.
mhm,
Whatever plan that you have, whatever agreement that you've gotten into, if you're real about yourself, then you're going to deliver.
mhm,
So I had to deliver, and but I do get tired now. I will tell you, I really do sometimes. Yes.
mm, mm.
Yes.
Faith is critical, isn't it? That
Oh
that
my goodness.
you know, I love that term. They say faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so you believe it. You look around, there's no evidence. It's like nothing's happening. That you know, I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't seem to be happening. The things I thought were going to happen didn't happen, and now I'm here. And
Right.
but yet you keep going. Man, man.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You you listed a lot of people who helped you along the way. How important is it to have somebody that can help you, somebody who's been there, somebody who can give you that guidance and what frame of mind do you have to even accept it? I work with a lot of young people, and sometimes you try to tell them that there's a hole down the road, and if you turn left, you'll miss the hole. But it's like, no, man, I know what I'm doing, and bango, they're in the hole. So was how important is that mentorship and some of the people that guided you along the way? How did they help you?
Yes. The mentorship is a very important part of success for me. Um, I think the key to success, as mentioned by a wealthy individual, Mr. Clive Davis, who spearheaded Arista Records and J Records.
Mhm.
I went to one of his conventions, and I never forget that he said the key to success, one of the keys to success for him was the key to recognizing and knowing your own strengths. So I learned now is to pay attention and recognize and listen, because there are going to be people in your corner who's going to be mentors sometime that you don't even know they're mentoring you. You
Mm,
just have to listen. Even you, Dr. Harris, when you came on my show, you didn't come as a mentor, but you was mentoring me.
mm,
And you didn't know that, but I have learned in life is to listen to people, because my mother's always taught me that a lot of times people in the world don't know much about you until you open your mouth.
mm.
You
Yes.
can you can sit still. You can be from the deep, deep country where there's outhouses, and you can be in a deep, deep country, and nobody would know anything about you until when you speak, then sometimes people can identify you. So I
Mhm.
learned sometimes to be quiet and realize and recognize when I'm being mentored. Now,
Mm.
when I run into those people who think they know everything, as you
Mm.
mentioned, I just sit back and listen to them, because I'm not the type of guy that's going to get into an argument. If somebody says, "Oh man, I know about that. I know about that," I'd be like, "Oh, okay, well that's pretty good. I like that. So tell me about it."
Mm.
But
Okay. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's a good statement, that to pay attention,
oh yeah,
and be aware of the surrounding. When I see young people and older people too, but I see people with their head in the phones all the time. You can't
mhm.
really pay attention if you spend all your time looking at that little screen.
That's true. That's
You
true.
can
So
miss a lot.
the thing about this generation that I definitely respect the generation, and I embrace them, because um, as we come up to life, things change, generation change, and they come with a different mindset, and they do
Mm,
play with their phones. They're constantly in the phone all day, but that's their generation.
mhm.
Um, when we came up, some of us was boogieing and bands and all kinds of stuff, blue lights, and all different type of things were going on, and
Yeah.
but this generation, it's the age of technology, so they are into their phones quite a bit,
Mhm.
and some of them, Dr. Harris, is making money with these phones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they figured out a whole nother profit center.
yes, they have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Gary, I tell you, we kind of coming toward the end a little bit. Uh, we've been doing this. We've been using our book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success, and a lot of people who've gotten the book and have used the book. And I remember doing your show. What was your first encounter with the book?
I have my book right here. The first encounter with the book, I mean, when I saw this book, which is right here, when I saw this book, 12
Mhm.
Universal Laws of Success, I don't know if you can focus for me, but it's right behind you. When I
Uh-huh.
saw the book, you had so many laws, and there were 12 of them in the book. And I still have that show. And there's several of them. All of them, actually, Dr. Harris, are strong commands for me. Uh, the law of focus, the law of action, those two right there alone is strong for me. Um, wow, magnetism. That's another strong one for me as well. Each one of these are amazing. I just got to name them for my audience if they're listening. The law of thought, Dr. Harris, the law of change, law of vision, law of command, law of magnetism, law of focus, law of action, law of value, law of relationships, law of supply, law of persistence, and law of truth. I mean, all of those laws, it's almost like the 12 commandments. I mean, it's like the 10
Ten
commandments.
Commandments.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, Gary, it's funny. When I started writing the book, it was the 10 laws.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'd modeled it on the 12, on the 10 commandments. But
Okay.
you said something very interesting. Many times you don't get an understanding until you get there. It's almost like a basketball player moving without the ball. If you don't
That's true.
understand the game, then you won't be in the right place to take that shot when the shot needs to be taken.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And so when I started writing the book, it was the 10 laws. That was the initial draft, was the 10 laws when I was laying out my outline and whatnot. But as I progressed through the book, the one law that made itself obvious, that 11th law, that law of persistence,
Oh
that was
yeah.
the way it made itself obvious because, and many of us, I know, many of our listeners want to write a book. And when you sit down to write that book, that blank screen or that blank piece of paper is almost like Goliath. It's like it's stopping you. And so many times people would throw in the towel.
Yeah.
And what
Oh
I
yeah.
realized was that this book required persistence. Every time I thought about quitting, every time I thought nobody would be interested.
Mhm.
And one of the things I caution people, don't let everybody read your stuff. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because a couple of people read, I was, so often you want to validate yourself. You like somebody to say, it's like you were saying, one of the station program directors, when he heard your tape, he said, we're going to put this thing on. And it validated you. It really gave you the strength to like, I can do this. Yeah.
Yes. There's been obstacles, as you mentioned, persistence. I'll continue to do it. Like I said, when you're in a field of entertainment, a lot of other things come with it. A lot of other things come with more friends. People start recognizing you. You begin to be in places that you thought you never could be. So once you recognize the success, you recognize your strength. And I think that was one of the biggest things that that I have begun to recognize. I begin to recognize my strength, my worth, and who I am now. So now I know kind of where I'm going. And it gets, and Dr. Harris, I would say it gets tough because at the same time, I still have to survive.
Right.
So, income still has to come in. And sometimes it's not always a straight line with that. But it's business. So I have to make sure I stay on top of it. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you figured out how to balance it, because you got to do certain things to stay in the game.
Yes,
then you got to be in the game.
You got to be in the
game. Yeah. And I think that's the difference between a lot of people. Someone once said that they were pointing to a cemetery and they say, in that place, there are more dreams buried than there are out here in the world. So many people let their dreams get buried under, just other people's criticism. I was very sensitive to that when I let a lady read my book in Cleveland, and she said, everybody knows all this.
Wow.
And man, I was like, man. And when she said that, she said, yeah, but this is like too basic. I mean, everybody already knows this. This is in Napoleon Hill. This is in Think and Grow Rich. This is in, and when she said all that, it made me for a moment there like, man, maybe I'm doing something that's really not going to be fruitful. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. When that happened to me, and it does all the time, sometimes I can do a topic or I have a show and somebody may say, we need to quit talking about that we've heard that before. When I hear people say things to me, Dr. Harris, everything that somebody says to me, I take it as a nugget because people can speak negative about you and say negative things about you, but somewhere in that sentence, there's a message in it. Just like she told you that, everybody talking about that. But in essence, everybody are not talking about that. That's what she feels, but she's only one person out of this whole world.
Exactly. And it's funny, later I realized that she had some very serious problems of her own,
Oh, wow.
She'd always wanted to write and was, one of those people that she let perfection stand in the way of completion. You can always edit a book and make it better, but you cannot edit a book that's not written.
That's so true. I tell people, even when it comes to education, people, decide to go back to school later on in life. When people can tell you, you're too old to go back to school. Why are you waiting this late to go back to school? What I look at them and say, what difference does it make to you? This is my choice. I've chosen to do this.
Yeah.
So I just take it as criticism, and I just keep moving forward.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
Now you do a lot of work with young people. Is there any message that you've observed or would love to share for young people?
Sure. I would say to the younger generation is, as what I said before, is know your own strengths. That's it. You got to know your strength. Recognize the key to success. Listen to your inner ear talk to you. I don't know if people have ever been in a position in life that there was something that you wanted to do, whether it was to buy something new or make a decision, and your mind told you in your ear, you heard something saying, don't do it. Well, you have to recognize that. So a lot of times to the young generation, pay attention, listen carefully, make the right choices, because choices in life can change your entire life. The wrong choices can change your entire life. You can do something when you're young and it can just change the whole pattern of your life. Not to say that you can't fix it, because you can. And don't ever let anybody tell you what you can't do and what you can't be. When you're young, you can do anything. You have I'm not gonna say all the time, but you have a lot of time that you can become whatever you want to become. I would say this: a lot of people say, if I could turn back and go back in the hands of time and would I do it differently? Well, my answer to that, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't do it differently. You may make a few changes, but you may not do it differently, because your mindset, you're thinking, if you went back, you're going to go back with that same age and that same mindset. Now, if you went back with the mindset of an adult that you have now, but you're in a young person's body, well, you might do some things different then. You may.
Yeah.
But I tell the young generation, just believe in yourself, and don't stop. And one last thing I want to say is that a lot of people have a tendency of telling people that education is the key to success. But I'm here to tell you that for some folks it is, and for some folks it isn't. Follow your dream and believe in yourself, and don't never let anybody tell you what you can't do.
Woo! Wow.
That's right.
Yeah, they say on the entertainment, they say drop the mic, and
They drop the mic.
In church, they say, "Oh my God, take up a collection right now." Oh man, I tell you, I was enjoying your TV show. Now going forward. Where is Gary Jones going now? What's the new trajectory?
Okay, well, it's interesting that you asked that. I've shot a couple of movies. I've been in some films. Recently, 2 films, actually 3 films, and I've shot some movies previous in the earlier years. But the recent films I've shot with a movie producer named Ty Banks, which is the movie is Messy and Hit a Lick and Hit a Lick 2. So I had a chance to be in some films. So that career is also in the making. So we're doing some other stuff with that. So we'll be shooting that. Another movie is in the process now as we speak. And as far as the radio show, Get With The Program is the radio show. And the website to that is www.getwiththeprogram.biz. That's still going on. So the radio show is still working, and I'm going to continue to deliver message, because my radio show is about bringing awareness to the community. I'm about bringing awareness to the community. And now we've started shooting footage for the TV portion of it. So I'm looking for, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but I'm looking for big views on that when it come out. So we're about bringing awareness to the community, because there's a lot of things that are going on in the community that people don't know about, to be educated. And so that's my mission. Yes, sir.
Wow. Well, it's such a joy to hear that, because, I've been around a while, and I keep running. Sometimes I hate running into old classmates, because they're, man, you still working? Why are you doing that? But I find that, and I take my hat off to you, because many times people get in that rut of mediocrity, and that I don't have the energy. Right. And whatever your mind conceives, if you believe it, that's what it is. If you believe that you don't have the energy, if you believe that there's nothing in the future, then that's what it is. But it's a great joy to see you. And I don't know your age, but I know at this point in your life, you say you've been through a lot, but to see you still following that star, man, still following your passion. And that, I think, will keep you young, will keep you energized, and will keep you growing and going.
Thank you so much.
Well, Gary, I just thank you, man. If there's any other last words you want to share, you're welcome to do it. Give your website again, because
sure.
They need to plug into you. As they say, your star is on the rise, brother. And I find that stars are like waves. You rise but the whole thing is you keep going higher and higher. What's that? Remember that Sly Stone? You're going to take you higher. Yeah. See, so you keep going higher and higher. So if there's any final word, I mean, you dropped the mic already, but as you look at this next stage of your life, I'm sure that there are people who will say, sit down, be quiet. But is there any final words that just as you're moving on to say, this is where Gary Jones, this is what I represent?
Sure. I would say, I think what has been important for me is surrounding myself with the right people. That has been a very, very powerful thing for me. I don't never put a wall up to people, but when I let people in my circle, you got to be really careful who you bring in your circle as a close person to you, because I'm a mythical guy in some instances. I believe spirits can not necessarily, I can't necessarily say spirits, but the wrong intentions or the wrong impressions can get on you or get by you and make you think differently. So I would say that you choose your friends wisely. I choose people wisely. I made some mistakes, but when I see a sign, I would say to people, when you see a sign that's telling you that something is not right, usually it's probably not right. So, and a lot of us, we gamble and take chances on things. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes it don't. So you have to ask yourself, is the don't going to be better than the part that worked? So you got to know the balance. You have to, take chances, but your network is really important. Who you have in your circle, who you have on your team is a really key part. And then I would say that everything isn't always about earning a dollar. It's not always about, to me, it hasn't always been about earning a dollar. My thing is change. Want to help somebody, want to make a change in somebody's life. That's what I like to do. I like to see change and help people. It is not always about money. Sometimes just a word and information, just like your book, you're delivering nuggets to people. And if they read that book, it's a very powerful book. And I mean, that's what I have to say. Just make sure you choose the right people in your circle. That's important. Yeah.
Well, Gary, I sure thank you, my brother. It has been a joy. And for our listening audience, you keep up with him. Give him your website again, the program, getwiththeprogram.biz.
Yes, sir. Get with the program. The website is www.getwiththeprogram.biz, B-I-Z. Go to the website, look it up. And if you want to see some of the shows on YouTube, just type in Get With The Program Gary Jones in your YouTube search bar. And some of the shows that I've done will come up. So there it is.
Beautiful. Well, man, Thank you so much, Gary. You have left a body of work. And as they say, you left some footprints on the sands of time.
Thank you.
And the world is appreciative. So let me close out. I love to thank you for being here. And for our listeners, that the purpose of these success talks is, I believe that stories heal people. And that when the right story to the right person at the right time is like a lifeline,
Yes.
And so these success talks are about sharing stories and experiences with people. And so for our listening audience, thank you so much for being here. Share this, make some comments about it, but let other people know. And for those of you who want to share your story, right now we're preparing a new book where we're talking about some of life's challenges and how people overcame them. And go to my website and book a call, www.herbertharris.info. That's www.herbertharris.info. And you'll see a tab there to book a call, because I want to hear your story. Always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.
Sir.